Nintendo seems to want to race to be the most hated gaming company on the planet, faster than EA, Activision, Ubisoft, anyone you can think of. I don't think even Embracer Group was hated on a global scale as much as Nintendo currently is. You know, cease and desists for all kinds of games, the Power World suit, mods for some reason. Their Joy-Cons constantly breaking, even with the Switch 2. I've heard a few cases here and there of the Joy-Cons not working very good. Some say their games are getting lazy. They obviously don't look any better. Price increases across the board. They did the $80 games thing with Mario Kart World, a game that did not deserve to be $80. And overall, just being a worse company, going after a charity event, for crying out loud. You need Nintendo's permission to host a charity event, apparently. And my experience has just been the Switch. As of right now, I got the Switch, a few games for it, which were all fine, I guess. I got Pokemon Legends Arceus, underrated. I just don't think they're even worth it. They're not even a company worth engaging with, in my personal opinion. What's your take on that, Evan?
So my issue with Nintendo is like two factors. One is like me as a personal consumer versus me as somebody that's like a gaming commentator and news commentator, like in the gaming space. So from my personal perspective, as a parent, I don't really partake or consume any of the Nintendo products. Most of what I get is for my son. For example, the last Switch game I played was Animal Crossing, the latest one, in the peak of COVID. And that was a great game. I had a blast. I enjoyed it. It was enjoyable. Now, looking at it from the perspective of somebody that's a non-consumer, looking at it from the outlook of, you know, journalism in this context, Nintendo as a company seems to have gotten more and more extreme, or maybe they've always been like this, because every single news article about Nintendo is enforcing stringent and strict IP regulation. But the issue is the patent thing that's like the worst part about it is, for example, the Pal World debate, the Pal World situation. Trying to claim that all forms of pocket monsters belong to them and solely them, when yes, Pal World kind of did copy the ball, right? You could probably potentially say the ball was a problem, but they went after them for the monster catching and the monster releasing. There are IPs and things that predate Nintendo, that predate Pokemon, that do that. Not to the grand scale, not to like a massive global IP, not to anything really major, but it's not a unique concept to Nintendo. Nintendo made Pokemon a global IP, a global industry, which is what the issue is. Like, they view themselves as being the premier of their class, of their content, and it makes everyone else start to veer away from them when they're so stringent and enforcing of their copyright and rules to the point of pointlessness. For example, local tournaments, Smash tournaments, you know, just any kind of usage where it would be beneficial to the community, but you have to go through hoops to get the permission needed to even just host your own regular tournament.
Or I think it was a Super Mario 64 speedrun was the most recent thing with the speedrunning event. They weren't the only ones, Nintendo games weren't, but it was one of the games that was hosted. It's also a very popular speedrunning game. I don't know if you've seen those clips of like less than minute long speedruns because of like these weird jumps and weird backwards stuttering. So that was one of the games. It's not been an issue until recently. And it seems like the death of Satoru Iwata, I hope I said that right, was
Satoru
a
Iwata.
huge it was a huge tilting point for the entire company. Because I didn't know this. I heard he alone was responsible for some games even making it to the market. Smash Bros. Melee is infamous for having this like spaghetti code of sorts. Apparently, he was the only reason that game even came out. Because it was so weirdly busted that he kind of scrambled together and actually got it out on the shelf. Because he is a video game designer, like a developer, on top of being a businessman. He's what Phil Spencer sounds like he wants to sound like he is. But
a lot of Nintendo's like that. A lot of Nintendo's upper class, for a long time at least. I don't want to speak of the recent upper class and the recent executive class, but for the longest time, for example, Shigeru Miyamoto and a whole bunch of other people that from the beginning helped create the Nintendo that we've come to love, we're all designers or creators or coders in some way or another. For example, Gaben's a good example. He is an in-depth coder. He knows how to do things. He's probably not up to date anymore, but he was at one point highly qualified and technical.
he's definitely experienced with the engine that they use, but now that engine is so far gone out of date that he may still know how to code, but there's no way he'd be able to actually make a game himself. by now, I'm sure.
So you just look up all of these things that's happened recently. For example, labor settlement cases, loot box lawsuit in Mario Kart Tour for mobile, Joy-Con drift in hardware, pricing complaints in specific countries, firmware bugs, repairs, serial number mix-ups, so you can't even get your shit repaired. You'll have to send your shit in, take a while, things like that. There's so many little controversies that have been starting to stack up more and more and more. And Nintendo doesn't particularly seem to care or doesn't seem particularly invested in any of these major scandals because at the end of the day, their consumer base is one of the most loyal consumer bases. There are many, many people that are solely Nintendo consumers. They don't partake in any Xbox or PlayStation or PC. They do nothing but play Nintendo games. And Nintendo has such a strong backlog of IP, such a strong backlog of games that they're able to actually get away with that. It's one of the only platforms where if you truly care about that, you can literally buy a Switch and only play Switch games for 5-6 years and have plenty of games to play every single year.
It's not their products are like bad or anything. They're usually good, or at least they're supposed to be, but it's so many little things, the way they treat all of it. Like the Joy-Con repair things. They did fix the Joy-Cons for the future models, but then, like you said, sometimes they didn't actually fix the Joy-Cons, they sent consumers new ones. Because I guess they just didn't know how to fix it. I don't know how they overlooked it. I don't know why stick drift in the big 2025 is even still a big issue. It's really just from the base of the controller and upwards.
I think it really comes down to is that when you look at all of this, the big issue is Nintendo only cares about their own personal export of content and of events and how they want to do things is all on their terms, only their terms. They would rather have no public events, no public tournaments, none of that, if they're not the ones enforcing and backing and specifically supporting and promoting it. I know that seems like the negative controversy, the negative this, the negative that. I don't think for a second it's impacted Nintendo stock at all. I think the last time the stock had a genuine major backlash was the Wii U, which was genuine just a marketing disaster where everyone thought the Wii U was a Wii attachment, not a Wii 2. If they'd called it the Wii 2, the Wii U would have been a massive global seller. But the Wii U was like a genuine, it truly did break Nintendo's marketing and almost drove them to serious measures. So in the current context, none of these controversies, none of these extravagancies, none of these problems has made zero impact on Nintendo's stock price. And that's the only real way you can make a publicly shared company have any impact. So if I bring up Nintendo's share price and I go 5 years, you had 2021, you had the COVID thing. And since then, aside from a couple of little major dips, it's been on a ginormous climb. From $10 to $24 a share. If you go max, they peaked back here in 2008. Well, they didn't peak then. They peaked now. But in 2008, then you had the global financial crash. They started to decline. Everybody went down. 2014, $2 a share. It's been climbing since then. Nintendo doesn't really deal with any major backlashes. Most of Nintendo's crashes and declines came from A, the Wii U, and B, the global financial crisis. Nintendo persevered and survived everything with zero major issue. These public cases, these public drama, this little Nintendo did this or Nintendo did that. Even if, say, it got 100 million views, most of that is from people that already hate Nintendo or from people that don't even game. It doesn't really affect Nintendo's actual consumer base.
Really, it's the consumer's fault at the end of the day, because the Switch 2 is the fastest selling console ever made, apparently. Even though it obviously does not make enough improvements on anything to even be worth coming out with as little games as it did. It came out with 2 games? If I'm not mistaken, the original Switch also only came with 2 games at launch. Mario Odyssey and Breath of the Wild, which by the way was a Wii U exclusive first, and then came to the Switch. I didn't even know that until someone told me. I didn't even know the game came out for the Wii U. And if I'm also not mistaken, it is Satoru Iwata that took the pay cut when the Wii U came out, just to keep his employees paid. And have I ever heard of any other CEO doing that in the gaming industry? No.
No.
Not even
absolutely not.
And the whole consumer base thing is technically their only problem. They wouldn't be this big, they wouldn't be this stingy and basically drunk on their own power if we didn't buy every single thing they had. Now, I'm admittedly part of the problem.
Stop. Legitimately, I'm gonna be real. If I was Nintendo, I would not give a singular shit what anybody says. Put in
That's fair.
perspective, Blizzard. Blizzard used to not give a singular fuck what people said. They just made good games. But then progressively, bad game, bad game, bad game. Now public perception actually matters. Now it actually damages and hurts them. Now it actually impacts them. But once upon a time, it meant nothing. And that's the thing is like, when you look at it in the grand scheme of things, Nintendo's issue is they don't really have any serious issues. The lawsuit against Palworld doesn't really affect people. The lawsuit in regards to patents and Pokeballs and like capturing monsters doesn't really affect regular people. Because if you ask the regular person how many games are there like Pokemon, they're probably gonna say at best, Digimon, but you don't really capture Pokemon like that. It's different. Or Palworld. And then they're going to say, like, I mean, I guess they did kind of copy from Pokemon, aren't they? Because the average consumer isn't the people that are invested in the internet drama of gaming and like content creation and like views and like videos on YouTube. The average person doesn't partake in any of that. They see the article, they go, huh, that makes sense. Nintendo should protect their IP and move on with their life. So nothing is actually truly impacting their bottom line because their bottom line isn't going out of their way for random shit. Like the worst PR they got is when they shut down a tournament and Nintendo just says it wasn't authorized. And people go, it's kind of scummy that they did that, but I guess you should have got permission. Like people are quick to defend Nintendo because the controversies are minor. It's not the Cosby suite, like for example in Blizzard. It's not sexual harassment and stealing breast milk from a pregnant employee, for example, at Blizzard. It's not like EA literally firing hundreds of thousands of people. Well, not hundreds of thousands, like hundreds of people or thousands of people. It's not like Microsoft laying off 9,000 employees. Nintendo's controversies are, well, we kind of stingy with our IP. That's the major issue. Nintendo typically makes things right, just not right in the way people would like it, at least to consumer console. Like, you know, they don't lower the price of their games, they don't do this, they don't do that. But why would they when they have effectively a news blackout that doesn't affect them?
That is true. I didn't think about the whole price dropping thing, and they have their own ecosystem as well as is the only thing. They have their own eShop. They don't have to lower prices. Whereas, you know, if theoretically if their games were on Steam, maybe they would go. Maybe they'd have competition. Essentially, is the whole point. Now, third-party games on the eShop, they go on sale all the time. I bought Tales of Vesperia again for my Nintendo Switch for $12 from 60. From 60 to 12. Nothing like that on Nintendo's first-party titles. Not even close. I mean, if you find a 30% off, man, you're getting a deal. you want Black Friday right now. You best grab that.
The only time you get secondhand deals, or just deals with Nintendo games, is secondhand garage sale, GameStop. Even then, because GameStop sells it for like $50 or $55 instead of $60. You're not really getting much of a discount on any Nintendo product.
And Breath
of the Wild is still, I think, $50 or $45 right now.
Probably, and the Switch 2 version is up to like $70.
Yep, on Amazon it's $51. It's 14% off.
14% off. Wow.
So it's
saving
$8
so
off.
much money.
Yeah. So it's essentially you're at the system where when it comes down to it, there really isn't much you can do when they just don't care.
Also, I think
Legend
my
of
biggest
Zelda,
problem...
Tears of the Kingdom, $58. Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword HD Nintendo Switch, $52. This is from the official Nintendo store on Amazon, right?
How about the Switch 2
I can even bring up
games?
GameStop.
No, GameStop is out of business. They don't count. They're getting out of business.
Well, they're not out of business yet, but I'm just curious what it comes down to.
My store around here.
Legend of Zelda for the original Switch 2 is $38 pre-owned. New is $60. Nintendo game. This is the Switch 1, the original version. This is a 6-year-old game, 7-year-old game. $60. That's Nintendo.
Yep, that's just Nintendo.
I don't hate them as a company, but we got to be real about this. They're not impacted by anything global. They're not impacted by anything major. They are completely immune to the news cycle because it does not ever affect their baseline, their bottom line.
The closest thing they probably had to that was the Joy-Cons, but it didn't really seem to affect mainstream. Because if you had a Pro controller, that kind of went around that issue anyways. The biggest problem I currently have with them is their software. It's not an IP thing. It's a lockdown from their OS. Basically trying to force you into their ecosystem so hard that you cannot even play a pre-owned game anymore. There have been reports all over the place of people putting in a pre-owned cartridge and it just locks them out because it says that you don't have a key for this or you didn't obtain this like properly. and I'm wondering how I can tell, but I was going to possibly off of eBay grab a copy of Mario Galaxy 2 and Mario Galaxy 1, that bundle or whatever, because I don't want to give Nintendo money, but I've never played Galaxy 2. I'd like to play the best version of it I could. But now I'm worried if I get that, it's just going to lock me out of it and my whole Switch is going to borderline brick or something. So now I guess I'm just not going to play it, because that's what Nintendo has led itself into. And I know that I'm not necessarily their target audience, but I was for a while. I liked a lot of their games, and if you drag enough people out, it will eventually, you'll feel it in the bottom line, but just like EA, just like Activision, it doesn't really matter that small amount that is always being kind of burned in the background. They'll just keep doing exactly what they're doing. But arguably worse, because their games are actually decent half the time. The worst we've gotten is Scarlet and Violet, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. From what I saw, that game looked like complete trash. Not even the performance. Like, it just looked terrible. Not just graphics. The setup. The whole setup of it. This open world thing where the environments blend really weird. Pokemon are just wandering around. It looks like a Unity game. It looked like some piece of crap from Unity. And Arceus didn't look much better, but it did have a much more unique style of play. It actually changed things, so you can kind of forgive the graphics. It was a lot more innovative for Pokemon, and I actually liked the game. But Scarlet and Violet was trash. It was the fastest selling Pokemon game they'd ever made. What the crap is wrong with you?
And like I said, it genuinely comes down to the fact that the average Pokemon consumer, the average Nintendo consumer, only really partakes in that culture, in that thing. It's like, remember the days of the Xbox fanboys and the PlayStation fanboys? How that's kind of dead now? Nintendo is true to that. Absolutely and utterly true to that. They are fanboys of the highest caliber, and they're proud of that, and they don't care. Because Nintendo, at the end of the day, whether you like it or not, delivers quality products. They're just not the greatest company.
They're the Disney
and you
of the
can't do
gaming
shit
world.
about that.
They are the Disney of the gaming world.
They are. But at the end of the day, we can give Nintendo as much shit as we want. It sucks that they do a lot of kind of shifty, shady things, especially with like lawsuits and like pressuring people and individuals. But at least compared to other gaming companies who do the shitty things, but then release shitty games, Nintendo at least releases decent games. I don't want to talk about the Pokemon games because that's a different company. I mean, it's owned 33% by Nintendo, but kind of shitty there, right? The average Switch game, the average Mario, Zelda game, or whatever, the exact full first-party games are all typically rather good. So I gotta give credit where credit's due. I just wish they were up to par as a company and entity as well.
That's what they actually loved gaming as much as they used to.
But hey, thank you all for watching this video. My name is Eben, and this is Jaden. This is a new channel. It's a new series where we're just going to be covering all the gaming topics and news without actually discussing the news and discussing the underlying topics and back end of everything. So if you like this, like and subscribe. If you hated it, understandable. Have a good day. Thank you all for watching. Ebenhard out. Peace.
Yeet.